innocent civilians on one day in New York, if they could have killed 30,000 or 300,000, they would have. And therefore, you couldn't afford to let these groups get hold of WMD. Therefore, your attitude to proliferation and enforcement of UN resolutions on this subject had to change dramatically. Now that's, if you go back and wind back to 2002, 2003, that was the thing that was motivating us. And the issue today, incidentally, as President Obama's quite rightly said in respect of Iran, is not simply Iran with a nuclear weapon. It's what happens if there is leakage or dissemination of know-how or technology to these terrorist groups. That's the issue, and it's about risk in the end. It's not truth versus deceit. It's a calculation of risk.
The evidence about Saddam having actual biological and chemical weapons, as opposed to the capability to develop them, has turned out to be wrong. I acknowledge that. I accept it. And the problem is that I can apologise for the information that turned out to be wrong, but I can't sincerely, at least, apologise for removing Saddam.
In the upshot of the war, the price has been very high, over 100,000 casualties, anything between that and 600,000, depending on which report you want to accept on that matter. Thousands of fatalities amongst coalition soldiers as well. Al-Qaeda was not in Iraq, as it turns out, beforehand, but they were certainly there after the invasion. The Taliban resurgent in Afghanistan, American prestige seriously troubled by all this. Are you prepared to consider the thought that many people, I'm sure, are putting to you in these interviews, that the price was too high?
Well, it depends what the price, what has exacted the price in a sense. I mean, incidentally, just on the casualties, I mean, the figure of over 100,000 is now the International Red Cross figure. And this figure of 600,000 was a figure that is now totally discredited. And incidentally, of that 100,000...
That was from the Lancet, though. That was from the British Medical... The Lancet, I believe, that figure.
I know, but the methodology that they used has now been shown to be faulty. Now, the original publication got a lot more publicity, believe it or not, than the subsequent analysis that showed it was based on the wrong methodology. No, the fact is, I mean, look, whether it's 100,000 or it's 300,000, the fact is it's far too many. But the issue is who killed them and why. And when you actually look at this, the vast majority of the deaths came from terrorism. Terrorism introduced by, as I say, these external factors. And therefore the question really is this: if you get rid of a government like Saddam or the Taliban, and then these external factors come into play and they try by terrorism to destabilize a country that has shown that what it wants to do is to choose its government by democratic ballot, if they're prepared to do that, do you say, well, because they're prepared to do that and will cause us a lot of trouble and will cause a lot of death, then we, as it were, leave the people of that country with Saddam or the Taliban? And as one Iraqi put it to me, why are your people in the West saying, I've got a choice between rule by Saddam or rule by terror? Because both are terrible for me. And we forget this sometimes. Saddam was responsible for hundreds of thousands of people dying. And the fact is, these terrorists who try to kill people and destabilize Iraq today, and incidentally are doing it even as American forces withdraw, which shows how absurd it is to say they're doing it because of the so-called occupation. They're doing it to destabilize the country. Now, these are the forces we're fighting all over the region at the moment. And my view very strongly is you stand up to them. You don't give in to them. You don't concede to them. Because if you do, they'll come after you elsewhere.
Just finally, Tony Blair, you presided at a time when Princess Diana died and there was the monarchy sort of teetered there for a little while there, and there's been devolution of power to the other nations, Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland. And people, and even in England, are talking about whether the UK, the United Kingdom as a structure, has a future. And that may not be such a bad thing. Is there a chance, do you think, a good chance there'll be no United Kingdom in the next 20 years?
No, I think the UK will remain. I'm absolutely sure of that.
As a union?
Devolution is as a union. I mean, I think devolution is a perfectly sensible way of allowing people in Scotland, for example, who have a different system, for example, of criminal justice and many different aspects of civic society, and the way Scotland is governed are already different. Devolution is a perfectly sensible way of recognising that in Scotland and Wales and indeed in Northern Ireland. But I think the desire to keep the UK together remains very strong, Richard. I certainly hope so.
Tony Blair, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Richard. All the best.
I don't want to be the Labour leader who won 3 successive elections. I want to be the first Labour leader to win 3 successive elections. The people everywhere, not just here in Britain, everywhere, they kept faith with Princess Diana. They liked her, they loved her, they regarded her as one of the people. She was the people's princess. And that's how she will stay, how she will remain in our hearts and in our memories forever. Mass terrorism is the new evil in our world today. It is perpetrated by fanatics who are utterly indifferent to the sanctity of human life. And we, the democracies of this world, are going to have to come together to fight it together and eradicate this evil completely from our world.
To all my colleagues from different political parties, some may belittle politics, but we know, who are engaged in it, that it is where people stand tall. And although I know it has its many harsh contentions, it is still the arena that sets the heart beating a little faster. And if it is on occasions the place of low skullduggery, it is more often the place for the pursuit of noble causes. And I wish everyone, friend or foe, well, and that is that, the end.
That's some moments from Tony Blair's decade as Prime Minister of Great Britain. And you heard him there consoling the British people after the death of Princess Diana, speaking after the September 11 attacks on New York and Washington, and then you heard his final moments at the dispatch box as Prime Minister. His memoir is called